Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch a tiger by the toe. If he hollers, let him go. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Not some, not half, all of them. Now, bring them all, achieve peace.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our weekly podcast, filmed and recorded, marking day 674 of the Gaza war. My name is Tal Schneider, and I'm the political and diplomatic correspondent for the Times of Israel. Each week, this podcast is produced in collaboration with the Hostages and Missing Families Forum, an organization created by the families of those abducted to Gaza during the Hamas attack on Israel on October 7, 2023, and by the families of those still missing. We kindly ask you, as global citizens, to use your voices and platforms to share this episode. Help us, please, to spread the word and keep the hostages in the public's hearts and mind, whether it's by talking to your colleague, attending rallies, posting on social media, or you can also just send creative ideas to the forum. Every action counts. If you would like to support the Hostages Families Forum, you can scan the barcode in the show notes to visit the official donation page and help us fund their global advocacy efforts. The barcode will appear. Here it is. It's now on air, so you can scan it right now. But I will also put it up at the end of the episode, so you can wait all the way to the end of the episode, of the end of the podcast, and see it again, and use your efforts to help bring all of the hostages home. Today, we are honored to be joined by Ruby Chen, father of Itay Chen, a soldier, a cute and lovely soldier who went out to the battle. He went out to fight Hamas very early on October 7th, and was attacked in his tank and then kidnapped to Gaza. Hello, Ruby. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me on day 674.
I appreciate you taking the time to do this podcast. It's very, very important. We are, doing this on a weekly basis. You can, to the audience, you can look up previous episodes. We already talked to the mother of another soldier, of Nimrod Cohen. That was the first episode, but also, spouses and family members and a brother of Adar Golding, for example, and more. So, look up to those episodes, and you can share them and listen to them. We just want to start with just a little bit of news, because we now have reports in Israel in the last week or so that there is a change in the way that the Israeli government and the American administration see the event, and they're not looking anymore into phased release of hostages. I think the U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff recently told the hostage families that Washington no longer supports phased swaps, but wants all of the remaining hostages released at once, saying everybody should come home at once. No piecemeal deals. What do you know about that? What do you know about this change, and is it passable?
Yeah, so we were in Washington, D.C. about 10 days ago, meeting Secretary State Rubio, as well as meeting last weekend Special Envoy Mr. Steve Witkoff. And it seems that they reached the conclusion that after inheriting a framework from the previous administration and convinced by Prime Minister Netanyahu and Ron Dermer that this is the best option to get a deal forward, 6 months into the presidency, I think they reached a different conclusion, understanding that the probability of this framework getting to the end zone is low. And they have decided to look at different alternatives, including one deal that puts an end to the conflict, as well as getting all the hostages out in one shot. But as you probably see in the media, there are a few other outlets that have been reporting that, again, the prime minister still believes that the best way forward is a stage deal. I think we, the families, are in unison, believing that after 22 months, all the hostages are humanitarian, the living and the deceased that might get lost, and that we need a deal as soon as possible, and not, again, a long process that no one understands when the last hostage will come out.
So this is something that you think the American administration has decided after 6 months of trying, and they put the pressure on Netanyahu to do that, or it's, I mean, they're not putting too much pressure if we look at what we see right now. So they, the idea was from DC, not from Jerusalem, right?
Yeah, I think sometimes we overestimate the centrality of Israel, meaning that I think we need to look not at what is the Israel view on the region, but actually the United States and its strategic view in the region. What do I mean by that? I think that the United States strategic interest, as said by the president, is ending conflict, stability, and prosperity in the region that also the United States economy could benefit from. And I think that the president leading and joining the attack on Iran and the inflection point that the region is in due to the changes in Syria and Lebanon. I know the administration understands that this is an inflection point, and the president can cement his legacy by bringing peace to the region and also enjoying the economic benefits of that. So I think that is the compass that this president has. He also has to deal with some domestic issues, might someone say not that small as either. And I think that is the way to kind of look at it and see why and when this president and its administration might be pushing the envelope a bit more, because 6 months, a presidency term moves very quickly.
Yeah.
And the president had a lot of political capital after Iran. And, I think it's no secret to say, but in Israel, the most popular person in the state of Israel is not Benjamin Netanyahu. It's actually President Trump. Why? Because he delivered. He delivered on what he promised. It's unfortunate the prime minister was not able to deliver on his promises. And I think that he just miscalculated, the prime minister, that he always thinks that tomorrow there is a better deal than the one sitting in front of him today, because he doesn't like to make decisions. And I think he lost a golden opportunity after the Iran war and finding a way to leverage that to bring Hamas to a good deal. But he decided that it wasn't good enough, and here we are.
Yeah. So, at the same time, talking about how Israeli prime minister missing opportunities and the way he conducts things, we just had the Israel Security Cabinet approving Netanyahu's plan against the will of IDF and against the will of the people, I would say, in an operation that can endanger soldiers, but also can endanger the hostages. And maybe you can, stipulate to us, we are talking about 50 people who were still being held, but what can happen if they are going into this, kind of grip on Gaza City, or movement of people from Gaza City down south, or other ideas that are floating now everywhere?
Yeah, so I don't think we need to go that far. The IDF Chief of Staff, Zamir, said that if this plan is adopted, then the hostages will be at risk, life-threatening risk, as well as the deceased hostages that might get lost. And that, he even said in a comment that maybe it would be more accurate for this government to change the objectives of the war and delete the objective of releasing the hostages, because that is in contradiction to the plan that the Israeli cabinet wants to adopt.
Yes, we are now looking at this lovely photo of Itay with the two of you, Hagit and yourself, and he is your middle child, right?
Yes, he is what we call the sandwich. He's like the Oreo cookie. He's the vanilla in the middle. He has an elder and younger sibling, so he is the connector. And very multi-talented. He always felt that he has no time, and Hagit, my wife, is the soccer mom that everybody talks about. I love extracurriculum activities from singing to dancing to climbing on walls, break dance. But more than anything else, he enjoyed being a Boy Scout counselor, where he wanted to guide younger kids. He would always come back from those hikes after a couple of days with no voice, so we knew that, he did what he wanted to do. And he also loved to play basketball. As a New Yorker, I was able to inherit my love for the New York Knicks. So my eldest became a New York Knicks fan. Itay, as a way just to show how he always wanted to be different, he became a Celtics fan. And that was very difficult for me. But it's just an example that he had his own way of thinking. And at the age of 18, he has a U.S. citizenship as well as a German one. My wife is of German descendant, so he could have done anything at the age of 18. But both my family and my wife's family, they are Holocaust survivors. So the concept of protecting the Jewish state, once upon a time, there was not a Jewish state. So he joined the IDF and was in the tanks division. And
So he went straight from high school. He didn't do more of leadership programs, youth programs. He went straight from high school to the tanks.
so actually, he wanted to join one of those youth programs and went through the process, but he was not accepted. And here we have kind of like the revolving doors, where his date to join the IDF was March 2023, but he decided that he wanted to go immediately into the IDF, even though he has a loving girlfriend that is a year younger than him. So he could have, I told him, find a job and enjoy life and just, take it easy. But he always felt as he had no time. So instead of joining the army in March, he joined in August. And we all know now, the consequence of that decision. And he also was very fixated on going to tanks division and not to any other unit inside the IDF, and actually needed to fight his way to get to that division, which he did. And again, at that crossroads, if he wasn't so persistent, then he would have been someplace else on October 7th.
Yeah.
But again, there's no way to look back in the past and know those decisions had so dear consequences. And he, at that October 7th, was protecting the Gaza border, which was in a ceasefire, and protecting the different villages, agricultural villages, what we call kibbutzes. And
it was actually in Nachal Oz, Mutzav Nachal Oz, Camp Nachal Oz, right? Which was, we know, in hindsight, we learned how severely this area was attacked. It was targeted and pre-planned, and this base took, a huge hit. And the soldiers in the tanks, they went out immediately trying to protect both the kibbutz and the military camp.
yeah, I'm just looking at the people on the bottom, sharing Carlos and others that have been following us. So thank you for sharing your notes and being with us today, listening in. So Itay, his team was mobilized, and they started doing what they were supposed to do. But of course, nobody envisioned a land attack on Israel, and they were not prepared. The base itself that Itay was at, Nachal Oz, was not even defined as a front base, meaning that it wasn't even equipped, or its protocol was not to be as the first responder, even though where the base was located, and they fought for a few hours and did what they were supposed to do, uh, protecting a lot of Jewish people from being raped, burned, killed just because they're Jewish. And but at the end, the tank was neutralized when the tank was in no man's land, and it took some time to get to the tank. We of course had no idea what was going on. We live in the city Netanya. It's about 10 miles north of Tel Aviv, and we for days tried to create some contacts with the other team members' families, and the day after, we went to a command and control center of missing people, and they also had no idea where Itay was. And it took them until Thursday to knock on our door, and they did that simultaneously to the other families of the squad inside the tank. Why? Because when they got to the tank Saturday evening, inside the tank there was one tank member that was killed, pinned down, and the three others missing in action. You know, it was like mayhem, chaos.
Kidnapped.
Well, at the beginning they weren't sure that he was kidnapped because there were so many, you know, dead people, you know, all over that territory that
Yeah.
the tank was in. So I guess it took them some time to figure out. And
Was
about
he
a
early
week
in the
after,
morning? He was
they
still able,
notified us that he was indeed kidnapped and taken to Gaza.
early in the morning. He was still able to call his girlfriend, right?
Yeah, he didn't call us. You know, he was very connected to his girlfriend, and you know, there's some tape in the tank. Uh, like the tank has a black box, and you know, when they went some sort of lull in the fighting, you know, one of the tank members said, "Oh, I was lucky; I was able to call my folks." And Itai was like, "Oh yeah, well, I called my girlfriend," kind of like showing up and saying, you know, he has, you know, a girlfriend to call, not like the others. So that was the last communication that he had. It was 6:30 in the morning, and ever since, you know, we've been. So Itai's battle ended that Saturday morning, but then another battle started, and it's very difficult to use that adjective battle, but it has been a battle for 255 families to bring their loved ones back. And why, in the love of God, did it need to be a battle that we actually needed to fight and prioritize the release of all the hostages? But it was unfortunate that the government of Israel um, defined the objectives of the war, which were dismantling Hamas, getting hostages out, and making sure October 7th doesn't happen again. And I come from a business background. I know there can only be one mission statement. And indeed, those objectives, they sometimes do not overlap. And at the end, one supersedes the other. And I think even today, when you see the Prime Minister speaking about the objectives, I think it is a fair question to ask. You know, what supersedes the other? Is it the dismantling of Hamas, or is it
Right.
getting the 50 hostages out?
It's
And it's
worth
unfortunate, but I
men-
think the majority of people here think that number one is the dismantling of Hamas, and it comes before the hostages.
Ruby, it's worth mentioning that while we speak right now, there is a press conference going on by the Prime Minister where he's being asked about this contradiction. He puts the return of the hostages in his statements, but his actions are different from his statements. And this contradiction was put on the table early in the days, right on October 2023. People said, what are you doing? You have to get the hostages out first. And obviously, I mean, it keeps contradicting all the time, and we don't see the solution to that
Yeah,
from.
it became a transaction. And you know, when you think about a transaction, there's always the price. Maybe the price is too high. Maybe the price is not right for us. And I, you know, don't understand, for the love of God, you know, how it could be normalized that, you know, speaking about this equation of getting 255 hostages out is the same as asking, oh, am I gonna go to the supermarket and I'm going to buy eggs. I'm going to buy some uh, beef to make my lunch today. Or should the elections happen in 2026 or 2025? Or what am I supposed to do with Smotrich and Ben Gvir? Do I keep them in the government? I don't. So how did it become that it became a question that is debatable and something that people could actually say legitimately, which we see in the Israeli media, panels speaking about that. Oh, you know what? Maybe those 50 hostages are not that important. And I, would challenge them and ask them, are they Jewish? Because the Jewish tradition, the Bible, always when you had that question of life versus death, the Jewish Bible always talks about life and protecting the people. How is it then became legitimate to ask that question even?
Yeah. I'm going back to this very difficult week in March 2024 when the military knocked on your door and told you that Itay was killed. And it was based on intelligence, but they did not give you any forensic evidence. And your family decided it's a personal
Premature.
decision, and you made up your mind not to sit shiva because under the Jewish halacha, the Jewish guidance, until you get until it's real, it's not real, and you don't have a closure, of course.
Yeah, so that happened somewhere in March 2024. So for about half a year, we thought that maybe Ty was able to get out of it alive because there was nothing in the tank that forensics that showed any type of blood or something that is related to Itai. We were notified based on intelligence. We, of course, question that because there's always that 1% that maybe a doctor did see him and was able to save him because it is possible. But, even though the rabbi that came basically said to us, from our perspective, you could sit a Shiva. And I looked at my wife and we decided together that he's not here. And it's some sort of suspended reality where we don't feel that we could have that process and initiate it unless he's here. And in my book, even though they came with that announcement, what defines Itai today? More than anything, physical status, not physical status. He's still a hostage. That has not changed. And from that, there should be no less of a priority, no less effort, no less intelligence, work going into finding him and bringing him back. And when we got that message, we had a lot of good people from the United States call us, congressmen, senators, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, Vice President Harris, even the president himself found 15 minutes to have a personal moment with us and kind of share his grief and what it meant. And tried to just be a dad to me. He knows I'm an orphan, so it's not like I had someone else to talk to based on previous meetings that we had. So he knew there was no one else to give me condolences. And I asked all of them, do you know what a Shiva is? The president said, yeah, of course I know. The vice president says, my husband's Jewish. Of course I know what a Shiva is. And I explained to them why we're not doing it, not because we don't believe, as Jewish people, but because, the Jewish faith, talks about the soul, which lives on forever. And in this moment, the Thai soul lives inside of me. And the body is the vessel that kind of holds the soul. And, we say, rest in peace, right? What does that mean? It means that the soul has a resting place. And it's impossible to conceive that at this moment, that is the status that we are in. And I asked all of them, when are we going to be able to have our Shiva, even if that is correct? And besides saying soon and we understand, there was nothing much for them to say.
Yeah.
Jake Sullivan, said to us once after meeting us, he kind of said, I promise you, the last thing I think about before I go to sleep is how to get your kids out. And you know what? I believe it.
Yeah.
And I knew his heart was in the right place. Execution, that's another issue. But I know that he very much wanted to do everything he could, as well as the president. But that's now for the history books to talk
Because
about why they were not able to do it.
Because this is something that is very important for me to stress to our listeners and to our viewers, is that you have between 70 to 75% of the Israeli people want all of the hostages back, 50 of them, in exchange for the end of the war. And when they say all of the hostages, the Israeli public means all of them, whether they were killed that day or kidnapped alive, but some of them were murdered inside Gaza. But it's very, very important that everybody understand that this is, it's like a consensus in Israel. And the fight within the Israeli people, what we see on the streets, with the rallies and with the support that the hostages' families are getting, is for all of the hostages to get out, from Adar Goldin, who was kidnapped in 2014 up until October 7th. And so the Israeli public is unwilling to let anyone, it doesn't want to leave anyone behind. So it's very, very important to understand. It goes both for, I know for the Americans crowd, maybe people that are not Jewish, it's sometimes hard to understand the importance of this process of burial and shiva, and your family is totally entitled to have that. So I mean, this is one of the reasons that we speak. And Itay is a dual American Israel citizen, as you can all hear Ruby's New York
distinct New York accent. I like to say I'm the proud outcome of the New York public education system.
Yeah, New York kid, New York boy. I don't know how to say it, but you are a very New Yorker. And as you told us just now, you were on the phone with President Biden to condole you, and we have heard and we have felt that through this horrific 22 months, the U.S. has been more supportive and more responsive than the Israelis leaders, and it's hurtful. I mean, for me as an Israeli, but I'm pretty sure that it's hurtful to you also.
Yeah, maybe I could share that after the president called, the Israeli media was like asking, what was the next logical question to ask when you hear that the president of the United States called? Would be, okay, did the prime minister call? I responded with no comment. And I think everybody understood why I said no comment. I think we were blessed with the previous administration. They had infrastructure in place when it came to dealing with hostages. It's unfortunate, but any given time, there are a few dozen U.S. hostages being held. So under the State Department, there's a function called SPIHA, Special President Envoy for Hostage Affairs, that was established about a decade and a half ago. So we were able to have that envelope of support. And, the first couple of days, I would go into Tel Aviv to the hostage headquarters, and you saw people totally lost. Like, no one was talking to them. They were like totally losing it. And there was no one to even interact with. And we felt, by that fact, at least we had someone to talk to. We had a case manager from the FBI. We had a support from the State Department that was talking to us. And I'll never forget the first Friday, President Biden wanted to talk to us, to U.S. families, just to make sure that we know that there was nothing more important on his agenda than getting the hostages out. And it was supposed to be a 15-minute call. And I was at least shocked that the audio was open and we were even able to talk to him. And after 15 minutes, the aide, was kind of like trying to push the president to say, look, we need to wrap it up. In an aftermath, I know that there was a chopper on the White House waiting to take him on to his next agenda. But he looked at his aide and was like, last time I checked, I'm the president of the United States. I'll end this call when I want to end it. And in that call, what I also will never forget is that one of the families on the call, um, they had two daughters that were missing from the Nobel Festival. And during the call with the president, they got a knock on the door. That they were notified that their daughters were killed. There was a lot of screaming in the background, and the president, of course, did not understand what was going on. Somebody kind of explained to him what happened, and it was, the guy. It was like a group therapy call. He started speaking about his own grief. Those that know President Biden, he lost his kid and his wife in a car accident many years ago, and we had a very unique relationship where we were able to meet Jake Sullivan, I don't know, 24 times. But this administration as well is just as committed, and I think it's important to say that, even though there's not a lot that these two administrations agree upon, but on this topic, we urged Jake Sullivan, Blake McGurk, which was a special president envoy to the Middle East, to forget politics and just bring in the new guys and work together on this. And God bless them, they, immediately called, once they were nominated, Mr. Waltz, Mr. Witkoff, and they pushed that deal that happened in January, which we hoped was a deal that would end it.
Yeah.
It's highly unfortunate. I was actually in Doha in January and looked at, the U.S. team and said, "Where's my kid? Where's Itay?" And they said, "Look, we promise you, if we start the first phase, it'll go to the second phase. You have nothing to worry about. He'll come out on the second phase." We all know what happened.
Yeah, and they wanted to go ahead, but the Israeli side was, breaching the agreement bluntly, I may add. And we do still see Steve Witkoff highly engaged, and Adam Boller. I mean, they're trying to be engaged, but we are now in this phase where nothing happens. It's very, very disappointing, I may say, because according to the Israeli side, they were close to something, but now it's.
This is Itay's dog, by the way, so he brought him home. The dog is missing him very much. His name is Gucci. So Itay, when we brought him home, he was like 2 months old. So Itay took his mattress down and slept, on the floor with him. Of course, the dog peed on him on the first night, but that was his way of saying, he owns him, and vice versa. And they just very much had a very unique connection to them. The dog, of course, goes into Itay's room every once in a while to see where he is.
So you see the lovely personality of Itay coming out of all of those photos and videos, and the hearts goes out to you.
Thank you.
So I wanted to ask about, support that you get from other families. I mean, this group that began as 251, and it's still, families that their hostages went out, they're still supporting, they still show up for rallies. And how do you support each other during this, very long period?
Yeah, so again, the genesis of this was the state of Israel was, missing in action, so to speak, and the families decided to establish an NGO, a non-government organization that is built on donations. At the APEX, we had about 100 people on payroll. That's why it's important to us to get the support of the people here listening when it comes to donations, because the government does not support us, helping us with the functions that are inside the hostages families forum, such as legal, mental support. The state of Israel does help when it comes to travel, So when going to the States or Europe, then that's where there's a process where you file an application and there's a committee and they approve it sometimes not. But we became connected in such a way that no matter what, we will be a family 20, 30, 40 years from now. It's unfortunate, but sometimes you don't choose your family. Sometimes we
Yeah.
act as a dysfunctional family, but nevertheless, we are still family because there's only things that one with the other could talk about and someone could understand. Uh, Within the 22 months, nobody thought we would be here for such a long time. I joined the steering committee, if you want to call it, of the families nominated, and just thinking we built the budget. Okay, Tally, how long do you think a budget initially we thought we would need? We said 1 quarter. You know what? 2 quarters, that'll be, way, way, way above what we need. We're building, quarter number 9 now, which is mind-boggling.
Because the hostage family forums is paying for all of the families that needs to go to Germany or Belgium or
So I
United
said
States.
the travel happens by the state when they want. The state pays for that, but it's more about the operations, the daily operations setup, as well as our fight against the government. So of course they don't support that. That means all the rallies and all the protests and all the different activities we do inside of Israel. So that needs to be coming from somebody.
We will put up the barcode for the donation page at the end of the episode again, but if you're listening to this, you can also just Google the website of the hostages forum and just do it through there. I want to also to ask you about you have 2 other sons, Ro'i and Alon, and how are they coping? How are they, do they get support network or for siblings, or their life have changed dramatically? What is the situation with them?
So I keep on seeing on the bottom, people writing stuff, support, and playing for us. So thank you again for being here and listening and being active and sharing your support. Alone he's 14, so he's still in starting high school, but he's still inside of a environment of structure. Roy, my eldest, he on October 7th, he was actually in the IDF in an intelligence unit, and he didn't find uh, his path, so to speak, to continue. And he became someone that has become my sidekick when it comes to travel to Washington D.C. or to Germany or to other places. And he could be, if anybody wanting listening needs a tour guide in Washington D.C., then Roy could definitely be of support. So he's waiting, and we are, as I said, in a suspended environment. Those of you that like Star Trek, there was that time that Captain Kirk would say, "Beam me up." So we have been beamed to a alternative universe where, yes, you see us. This is, by the way, in New York City,
Yeah, of
where
course.
we live in a different universe, and we just need to be beamed back down. We will not land in the same place and in a different timestamp, but still, we need to be beamed down back, and that's where we need your support. To those of you in the United States, I have a congressman. I'm sure you have as well. And what would be helpful is you spend a couple of minutes a day, write
Yeah.
a letter, send an email to your congressman, to your senator, and say, we are very committed to these hostage families. There are still
Right.
U.S. citizens that are being held hostage.
Right.
And
I was just about to ask you. The listeners always ask us, what else can we do? I mean, people who are listening to this, they want to help, they want to do something. So you say they can correspond with their congressman and keep this up,
senator.
but also what else?
So that's very impactful because at the end, congressmen and senators do care what their
Hmm.
people write about and care about. So when we go to Congress and we have the different committees in Congress and Senate, it's important for them to raise this topic and
Right.
support the administration to bring an end to this. And we have, as you know, I'm sure you know that there are different activities. If it's in New York City, in Boston, in Washington, and other places which support the hostage families, and we get to see them. So it's not like you're out there, nobody knows about it. Actually,
Yeah,
we have a weekly email that we see the different
I just want
rallies.
so you can Google "Run for Their Lives" if you are now watching this episode and you're looking for your local activity. Do Google "Run for Their Lives" and you will see a long list of events and rallies. I think sometimes on Sundays in your area, and you can just join them. And as I said earlier, you can do many other things. I'm gone. I'm sorry.
That's okay. We're a team. We're working on this together. Uh, there are, of course, the different Jewish organizations that are also supporting. I think they also sometimes need to get a reminder what their focus should be. And sometimes we see these Jewish organizations thinking that their number one agenda is supporting the government of Israel, no matter what. And again, I'm not a representative of the state of Israel, I'm just a father. Sometimes I say we are collateral damage. We don't have in the hostages son of a prime minister, a daughter of a minister. And the Jewish organizations need to remember that the number one priority of the Jewish people, which
Right.
is their client, and they need to respect, is what the Jewish people want. And I think a large majority are unified in demanding the Israeli government, the United States, the other mediators to do whatever they can to put an end to this suffering and this madness. And there is a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. There's the hostages, but there's also people that are hungry in Gaza. We could question and argue. Is it a lack of food or is it a distribution issue that Hamas just steal the food and sell it on the black market? But again, there are the Arab countries that should be able to and should be motivated to pressure Hamas and be able to bring both sides to a deal that we all know 80% of it, 90% of it is done. Now we just, are haggling on the 10% that's left. And a Middle Eastern haggling could happen for a long time. And we need, those Jewish organizations, senators, congressmen, and others just being able to push and prioritizing this and not letting this just happen another day, another week, another month, because it's gone on for too long.
Because your dear family need a closure to this horrific event, and it's very important to
I
remember
would,
that.
I would argue, Tony, it's not just about us. I think it's about the identity of the state of Israel. I think the state of Israel is at an inflection point, and it went down one path the last couple of years. It could continue to go down the same path, but I think it is counterproductive and not the way that the uh, founding fathers of the Jewish state envisioned how the state of Israel would look 80 years after the inception. And I think it is a battle on the identity of where the state of Israel is going to. And I think as well, the values that Americans, Jews, and just Americans in general, the values that we all have that we grew up on, something that we should try to steer the Israeli state to adhere to the same principles of those of values that we have in the United States: freedom, democracy, freedom
So
of speech. And I think that's kind of got lost. And it's not just about the hostages. I think it's a bigger issue than that.
it's very important that you say that at the end of the episode, because when we were talking earlier, I told you, since I am a mother of two soldiers, it could have been anyone of the Israelis. It's not just the Chen family. It could have been any of us. And I think every Israeli who is watching you and is supporting you and is listening to you knows that it could have been him in your shoes. And this is not a fight just about Itay. It's a fight about, as you said, the Israeli identity, the solidarity of the Israeli people and the Jewish people, to make sure that we don't, never have that again, but also make sure that those hostages are back home.
Yeah, I think the word solidarity is very important. I think that the fact that the Jewish people survived for thousands of years was that mutual solidarity that the Jewish people had. And it seems like sometimes today we don't see it. And without it, the existence of the Jewish people, is not the same as the people that live in Israel because, as you said, even the IDF is built on the reserves that come in and support those that are in mandatory service because there is that solidarity that everyone helps one another, and when war happens, that everybody pitches in and everybody is on the same page. And I think it's unfortunate, but today it feels like 2 years ago where there was a lot of dialogue in the public um, public media about us and them, meaning that there are two factions here in Israel, and it's not just one united country. And it's unfortunate to say, but I think that rhetoric of us and them has come back, and I don't think it's an accident that it did.
Ruby Chen, I want to thank you for this episode and for the what you told us about Itay. Before we wrap up, I'm just going to give you all of these important reminders. You can scan the barcode in of the hostages forum and donate to the hostages and missing families forum. It's all of the money is being transferred to their activity, and you can join a rally in your area. As I said, you can visit Run for Their Lives website and find events near you. You can share this podcast. You can send it through email, through WhatsApp, share it online, and you can keep the hostages in your thoughts and conversation, and raise awareness. I think every bit of an item you do matters, and help brings all of them home. Ruby, I want to thank you again. And thank you all for listening and being with us. We will be here next week at 7 p.m. Today was 8 p.m. I'm sorry, it's 12 p.m. Eastern time. We will be here next week again. Thank you, Ruby.
Thank you for having me. God bless.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch a tiger by the toe. If he hollers, let him go. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Not some, not half, all of them. Now, bring them all, achieve peace.